Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Miranda,
I'm Christina.
and we are here today with Professor Green. We're going to be interviewing him about amenities. So, thank you for meeting with us.
Thank you.
Can you go into what exactly is an amenity?
You know, figuring out what an amenity is kind of depends on when you're talking about it. If you go back to the 30s and downtown Las Vegas when they're first putting in rooms and casinos, a telephone was an amenity. Today we don't define a telephone as an amenity.
It's a given.
You expect it. And yet I go and look at, say, the websites for any major casino, and for them, amenities are things like the pool, the restaurants. They talk about all of the things in our hotel. So an amenity is something, I would say, beyond the room itself, or the basics of the room. That's how they seem to define it.
Have you seen any amenities fail or just become obsolete?
You know, there are things they've gotten rid of, and the question is whether they worked or they worked in their time. It used to be most of the hotels here had boats at the lake. And one of the things they like to do is have the stars. And they do great publicity shots where, here is Frank Sinatra on the Desert Inn's boat or whatever.
Right.
And one of the things that happens in this kind of situation is that they realize the boat's a nice thing, but do they have boats back home? Well, if they have boats back home, they don't need them in Las Vegas. And if you're at Lake Mead, you're not gambling. So get them back to the
What,
casino.
in your opinion, is the most popular amenity being offered right now?
You know, it kind of depends what the most popular amenity is on who you're talking to.
Well, that's true.
So, okay, at the time we're doing this interview, I'm headed for my 45th birthday. The nightclubs don't appeal to me as much. But if you're in your 20s, you got a lot of money, you want to see Paris Hilton or Holly Madison, you're going to go to one of those clubs, and that's an incredibly popular, profitable amenity. I still think the classic amenity is the buffet.
So for amenities in Las Vegas, we know that they have to constantly evolve the casinos and offer new amenities. What do you think is the up-and-coming thing? What do you think we can expect in the near future?
I think the best way to figure out the next amenity, the next big amenity in Las Vegas, is to see what Bill Gates or Steve Jobs is doing. I think it's always technological now. So I think that whatever new technology is developing, whatever is really different, it will affect the amenities we have
So
here.
you've done some traveling in your time. What is the most outrageous amenity you've seen?
The most outrageous amenity I have heard of in Las Vegas goes back a long time. I grew up here and my dad was a casino dealer. And he worked at the Stardust, which was the casino depicted in the movie Casino, with the mob, and he was personally fired by the guy Robert De Niro played.
Oh, wow.
My dad would come in at 10 a.m., and one day, when he came in, he said, anything happen on Swing? Or Graveyard? And the guy said, yes, for the first time ever. And it turned out there was a high roller shooting craps, and he'd done well, and then he'd given a lot of it back, and they said, is there anything you want? And he said, yes, I want a woman.
Oh, no.
Well, it turned out that at that time, the Stardust, and this was true of hotels back then, had somebody who was, you might say, on staff. And they called her room, and the expectation was, she's in her room, she's waiting. And they came to him and said, she's in room 1311, since there's no 13th floor, we'll say 1311. And he said, no, down here. And she went down to the casino floor, and all the security guards were called and surrounded the table, and the two of them engaged in extracurricular activity.
Wow.
Oh my God.
That is an amenity you don't expect, and I don't think you should ask for.
That is definitely outrageous.
All right,
Well, I think we just have one last question.
Yeah. Internationally, a lot of hotels are boasting that they do currency exchange and they offer, a multilingual staff. And here in Las Vegas, we're not finding that the casinos are really advertising that as much. We were just wondering, what's your take on that? Why aren't they doing that?
Well, I don't know that it isn't that they aren't advertising having multilingual staffs, currency exchanges, so much as they are letting the people know who are coming from the country in question. They might advertise it there.
Mhm.
But it goes in a couple of other directions. One, the major hotels have people in charge of marketing and programs for international travelers. There is a person at the MGM who has a staff as well, who's in charge of the Middle East. There's someone who's going to deal with the Asian market. In the old days, it was what they would call a junket, and there was a guy who had friends, and he got them to fly in from wherever, and usually it was domestic. Internationally now, they do their research. And I think, first, they know what the international traveler, and they're looking at someone who has substantial money, is going to want when he or she comes here.
Okay.
The second point is that that international traveler, being somebody who's spending a lot of money to be here, as opposed to, say, someone driving in from LA for the weekend, that person comes in thinking, if they know service, they're going to have the currency exchange. If I speak Japanese, there's someone here who can speak it. If I speak Lebanese or whatever language you're thinking of, all of these needs will be met. So I think it's a combination of the research they do that they don't need to tell everybody about, and the presumption on the part of the traveler that if Las Vegas is as great at service as we are supposed to be, that service will be waiting for them when they get here.
Okay, it's just a given.
It had better be if they wanted to come back.
That's a great way to sum it up. All right, well, again, thank you so much for meeting with us and
Thank
taking
you.
the time. It was a pleasure.
Glad to.